Right, good evening, everyone. I can see you're all joining, so I'm just going to give time for everybody to get in. So as you're joining the group, if there's anybody here from the post-operative support group that was happy to share some experiences or be part of our panel this evening, if you can raise your virtual hand, then Stevie, our host, is going to just flip you into our panel tonight. I'll explain a bit more as everybody's joining. So again, if you've had surgery and you don't mind being part of the panel that might answer some questions or share a few experiences as we go along this evening, please raise your virtual hand so that you can be flipped into the panel. That's brilliant. Okay, so I think everybody's joining. That's wonderful. Brilliant. Okay, so hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Jodi. I'm the bariatric specialist nurse at Salford Royal. And so for some of you, this may be your first session, so welcome. It's really nice that you can join us. So just so you understand, you're with a group of people from across the Northwest and the Northeast as well, I believe, who are considering bariatric surgery, or you have already met our team and you are waiting for your surgical date because of delays. And so that's who our group are made up of. So if you look down there in the participants, at the minute we've got around 137 people joining. So what we try and do is stay on mute throughout the session. If you've got any questions, pop them in the Q&A box. We run these sessions monthly and we have different hosts. So it might be a surgeon, or it might be a medic, or a pharmacist, or a psychologist, or a dietitian. So we try and keep the questions around the things that we're talking about. So tonight I've invited our post-operative support group to support my session, which I'm doing on patient experience, and we're more specifically talking about things after surgery that maybe don't get talked about that much as you go through the process. So the weird and wonderful world of living with bariatric surgery, kind of warts and all, so good experiences, bad experiences, things that are just worth knowing about that you can hear from the people that have had surgery. We've got people that have had surgery that maybe just be, let me think, maybe 6 weeks post-operative, and some people that have had their surgery maybe 5 years ago. So I'm really grateful to our post-operative community and for those joining us tonight that helping me share what happens after surgery. So let's see, that's great. So again, if there's anybody who's joining our session now who has had bariatric surgery and is happy to be part of the panel that may share some of their experiences or perhaps answer some of the questions as we go along, there's no pressure. You can flip into the panel and not say a word. That's absolutely fine as well. We do have the Q&A box there for any questions as we go along. So raise your virtual hand if you want to be flipped into the panel, if you've had surgery, that is. Okay. Lovely. Okay, brilliant. Right, so I am just going to share my screen a moment and we'll crack on with our the presentation tonight. So bear with me a second. Okay, can everybody see that? The panel give me a thumbs up. They can do it like this so I know that people can see what I'm looking at. Great stuff. Thank you very much. Okay, so the panel. Oh, hang on a second. Not moving forward. Brilliant. Okay, so we have Stuart. Stuart, as you can see, has kindly let us use one of his photos when he did a talk. So you can see him before and after surgery. I think these are quite impactful, just because as we go through the process of bariatric surgery, everybody here already understands that they really want to lose weight and they really hope to have great results. I think Stuart is probably a bit of an exception in the sense that after bariatric surgery, we may expect around 65 to 70% of your excess weight to be lost around the 1.5 to 2 years after surgery. And Stuart has actually gone on to lose over 100% of his excess fat. He's a really keen runner now. And I think you can tell from that picture there. So thanks for joining us tonight, Stuart. We'll come to you shortly to say hello properly. Okay. We got Lisa Williams. So she's had her surgery quite a while back now, and she may be with us tonight as well. So she's had a really interesting journey, and again, she's had some wonderful weight loss. She's really busy lifestyle and was finding it really difficult with her job on the road all the time with her weight. She was having issues with things like leaking edema from her legs and just really struggling health-wise. And I think when she went through the journey of bariatric surgery, she kind of had an epiphany, and she's now still very much business minded for sure, but she's now put a lot of her energies into foster care, which is great. So we now call her a patient expert and champion as well, because she supported others that are considering surgery. And she also does a lot with her local area, trying to combat kind of healthy eating and looking and thinking about our children now, as unfortunately they have overtaken us adults in the obesity crisis, and 1 in 4 children are now obese. So that's Lisa. She's done fantastic. And then we got David. I think he'll be here somewhere as well. And so again, David's a real active member in our post-op support group. So again, he's done fantastically well. So it's lovely to see the pictures before and after. So thank you for those. And I'm sure lots of our patients, people that have had bariatric surgery here, have got before and afters that they're happy to share with us another time. But they're the ones I've got for tonight. But let's start talking about after bariatric surgery. So in fact, I'll tell you what we'll do before. I'll just stop sharing my screen. Let's just, if it's okay, if we can just introduce the panel as it, I'll just, hang on a second. I'll just stop sharing so we can go back to the panel here. So if people don't mind, is it okay if you just say a quick hello, maybe just tell us when you had your surgery and anything else you care to share in just in a sort of brief introduction of yourself. So if I can go to you, Ryan, is it all right if you say hello?
Hi, yeah. So I'm Ryan. I had my surgery in October of last year. So I don't know if I'm probably the most recent. I'm trying to think. As of, I think, last Tuesday, because I've not weighed myself this week, I now weigh 105 kilograms, which is way over half my body weight I've lost. So
fantastic. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. And Corinne.
Hi, so I'm Corinne. I'm probably one of the most recent, so 11 weeks. I am post-surgery now. I'm absolutely loving it. I can see differences, and it has taken me the whole 11 weeks to start seeing the differences, but I don't see it looking in the mirror. I see it when I see pictures, which is quite scary when I look and think, is that really me? And then not last Sunday before, I completed my first 10K in 1 hour and 23 minutes. So really, really proud of that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Hannah? Oh, your mute's still on. Oh, there you go. You're there.
So yeah, I had my surgery on the 24th of January this year, and I'm currently 31 kilograms down. I'm not sure whether I did get a picture, but this is where's the camera? One of me from the weekend. And brilliant. Then I've got one here with a nice dress on. So yeah. But again, I'm the same. Looking at myself in the mirror, I'm still the size 20 pictures from the weekend. I can really see it now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks for joining us. And Margarita?
Hi, I have my surgery on 9th of November. So I started my journey when I was 141 kilos, it's nearly 29 stones. Officially, my weight now is 87 kilos. I'm down from size 28 to size 14, which is amazing. So I'm doing all right. I'm absolutely happy with results, absolutely happy with everything.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's great stuff. And Victoria?
Hiya, my name's Victoria. I've not had no surgery. I'm on the list to have surgery, and by listening to our use is like, wow, I can't wait, you know, to have it done, just so I can get my life back onto track. It's just so hard. At the moment, I'm poorly. I'm in a lot of pain. Can't do much. And at the moment, I weigh 119 kilograms. So I just need to get it down, get it off. I've tried all. So.
Well, thanks for joining us, Victoria. I mean, obviously everybody here is waiting for surgery, so you're not alone, and I think everybody sympathises and feels just like you with the delays as well. It's definitely been one of the hardest journeys for any of our patients through the pandemic. So thanks so much for sharing, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of this evening. I think it's going to be really interesting for people. And Stuart?
Hi all, I'm Stuart. I seem to be the old man of the group. I'm 3 years in now. So I was 3 years in on the 15th of May. For the last 12 months, I've kept my weight at 12.5 stone. Roughly, it's been 80 to 82 kilos. At my heaviest, I was 30 stone. So I have lost in the region of 18 stone. Loving life, enjoying it. Best thing I ever did. And I'm really hopeful that you all get there and join us soon, because you'll never look back.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I think it's really important to understand that when we do these sessions, for the vast majority of people who go to have surgery, it's a challenging journey, it's a rewarding journey. There's highs, there's lows, there's years that will go by, and there's lots of things that can happen in that time. And we do have people that regret having surgery. And I want to try and share with you some of the things that aren't so kind of what's the word, I don't want you to have a very one-sided opinion of bariatric surgery, because you're all here, you're all highly motivated, you all completely understand the reasons you want your weight loss, but it can come with challenges. So that was why tonight I wanted to have some people that have had surgery as well, but I've also had people that have talked to me who aren't here tonight who would like me to share some of the reasons that they've regretted surgery as well. So we're going to cover quite a bit, and so yes, I hope you find tonight useful. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen so we can talk through some of the common things that happen after surgery that you might not understand fully until you're living it. So let me put this up again, and I'll keep flipping in and out of it so that we can hear from our panel as well, and then also try and have a little look at some of the questions coming in as we go along. Right, so my screen should be shared now. So the reality, the early days. So we're talking about the weaning stage. Now I always say, quite famously, I think now, it's like having a newborn baby, that newly formed stomach of yours, and you've got to wean it all the way back to solid diet. And there's nothing worse than thinking, oh, I love the weight loss I'm having, and I'm fine with the liquid diet actually, because I'm not really hungry anymore. If you get stuck at that stage, you will not have healthy weight loss long term. So it's really important to wean back to solid food. And as you're trying to do this, all sorts of, as I said before, weird and wonderful things can occur. And for some people, it's very plain sailing. So every journey is unique. So do please remember that. But we'll try and cover quite a lot of ground from different experiences that in my career in bariatrics I've picked up along the way. So frothing and foaming. This sounds quite alarming. I don't expect you to start frothing and foaming from the mouth, but you're going to have quite a small stomach, and initially there's going to be quite a bit of swelling there, and just the tiniest pocket of air being stuck in that newly formed bypass or sleeve can cause you quite a heavy sensation that's a bit disconcerting in those first few days, weeks after surgery. And when you have a drink, you need to really take your time, because you can't gulp down drinks, and that's the first challenge, really, trying to get your fluids into a reasonable level so you're not dehydrated. So a common thing as you're going through the weaning process is feeling some sort of a foaming or a sort of thick saliva. So it doesn't sound very pleasant, but basically what's happening is you've had something to drink, or maybe you're further along, you've tried a new texture, and it's kind of stuck and it's sitting quite solid in the area where you've had your surgery. It needs to go down, but it's just struggling to get there. So your temptation, because of the heavy feeling, is to drink a bit more to try and sluice it down, and it doesn't work. It just kind of backs up. So you kind of, where this is trying to be digested, all that mucus backs up and you get a sort of kind of thick saliva, almost a froth coming into your mouth, which isn't the most pleasant thing. And that is a classic sign of an overfull pouch, and it can be very frustrating if you feel like you've hardly had anything, and maybe it is just an air pocket that's waiting for you to burp it up so the rest, like a pipe, can then empty out. So just kind of thinking about that, panel, did anyone experience that during the early days? Feel free to just take your mute off and talk. That's fine. If we talk over each other, doesn't matter, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I still get it today.
Yeah. So you're kind of going through that weaning phase.
Me too.
Yeah, and sometimes you won't know why, and other times you'll know why. You'll know that maybe you just left that meal a bit too long, so you've actually eaten it a bit quicker because you were getting a bit more hungry and you were ready for it. So that's why sometimes we might say, well, we'll introduce a dedicated snack, so you're keeping your portion smaller, you're not feeling hungry, and you're taking your time. Sometimes just the pace of life means that you try and eat quick like you used to, perhaps at your desk, or perhaps because you're doing a kid's meal and you've got to get to an activity, so you try and do things like you did before, and unfortunately your surgery just won't allow it. So your restriction kind of teaches you how to do it, but it's just important to understand that happens, so that you don't start getting kind of aversions to your food, or, as I say, the temptation to try and drink to sluice things down. You literally just have to walk around, let it go, and then next time you come to have your drink, you'll be taking a bit more time over it until you kind of nail exactly how it's got to be with surgery. Does that ring true with people? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I'm still getting it now, 3 years down the line. So yes, it doesn't go away. You just got to learn how to deal with it. I don't get it as much because you just get used to, you're wary of it. You don't want it to happen, so you just get used to trying to tolerate what you're eating and drinking.
And did any of you notice any changes to your taste buds?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so share some of the things, because I think if I didn't like a cup of tea anymore, I just wouldn't feel British.
I think my shocking thing was how sweet things taste. So I used to have sweeteners in coffee, and now can't have sweeteners whatsoever. I can't have anything sweet in drinks. So even Vimto, I have it practically water now. If I have anything just with difference, and everything tastes different. I never used to like fish, and I love fish. So it's just very random for me what's changed.
Yeah, it's quite useful to have that sweetness aversion, because that'll help with keeping away things like dumping syndrome.
I think what it is as well, when you start eating certain foods, them certain foods that you have to eat, you start liking them more, if you get what I mean. Because you can't have the stuff that you normally used to have, so you end up changing it, and you end up enjoying that more, just because it I don't know, it's better for you.
Yeah, and it's useful because you're trying to get into habits of a lifetime, and I think all of us, before surgery, after surgery, meal planning can be really annoying and quite frustrating, and shopping and all those things. You have to sort of get yourself into a place where you are thinking ahead quite a bit to make sure that you're kind of getting the things that you're going to enjoy, that you've got plenty of go-to items, that there's certain things you just don't buy anymore, because it's just not worth having them in the house. So have you found an impact on your family and people around you, or have you kind of got into more of a routine as a household?
I'm lucky. My other half does all the cooking, but he's having to learn to not cook for 7,000 and only cook for basically one adult, me and my little boy. So we've been some days having the same thing 3 days because it's just physically that much left over. You don't realise how small a portion is. So you'll put it out and then you'll look and they'll be like, oh, this, and he's like, oh, done it again. So we are learning, and it's a big learning curve as to what, but we're just all having the same. So if we have a spaghetti bolognese, I just have the bolognese with all the veg in, and they'll have the pasta. So we're doing it like that and adapting everything just for me to have whatever they have, the protein element of it without the carbs.
Brilliant. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great.
Yeah.
So, go on, Ryan, go for it.
Yeah, so with having 3 kids under the age of 6, it's been quite an interesting challenge, because I do all the cooking. I cook for them, and then whatever's left, because of how I've done it, is what I have. And it's kind of allowed me to realize how much food I was cooking before to what I'm doing now. So it's kind of opened up a lot more options for budgeting with food. So it's kind of allowed me to follow the right portions without really overdoing it, because I'm having the same size portion as them. Yeah,
it's a good thing. So just going back to the slides then. So I put in thirst there. And I'm trying to think why now. I'm trying to think what it was that somebody had said about drinking.
I struggled when I started to pick up my exercise, because the natural thing to do is when you're exercising is to have a big gulp of water when you get in from your walk. And I did that on one of my first ones, and it stuck like a cannonball in my throat, to the point where my husband was banging me on my back. And I knew what I'd done straight away, but it was just kind of my fault because I was thirsty. I'd come in and had a big drink of water. Never done it again.
Yeah, no, that was it actually. It was the way that you have to just go right back to basics. So again, like you would send a child to school with a water bottle, you have to go everywhere with something to be sipping to get that volume in, because you were trying to, the challenge is to not feel thirsty. And I don't know about and if everyone's sort of sat listening, but I know I get really thirsty, forget to drink, and then think, oh, I better catch up and I'll have a whole big drink of water or something in one go. You really have to combat that. And I think the early days help in some respects, because that is all you're doing. You think, is this it now? I'm just sipping all the time. But then it kind of gets easier. You get into more of a routine, and you can see how your fluids are going in, and you're a bit more mindful of having drinks by you. So has anyone had any particular challenge with that, or do you feel like you've kind of well through that stage now?
I'm similar with the exercise. So when I was doing the 10K, I gulped a lot, and it literally came straight back up. There was like hit the bottom and straight back up, which wasn't great, but it was just a case of, right, let's get on with it. But it is making sure you've always got it with you. So wherever you go, there's always a bottle by the side, and trying to work out, when I'm at work, I have one and like aim to get a certain level by lunch, and then by the afternoon, and then fill it up for coming home. And it's trying to make sure that you do little and often, because you just physically can't gulp. And it becomes quite because you can't half an hour before and half an hour after, so it becomes a bit regimented. And if you do miss a bit of a meal, or it goes half an hour later, it can throw your whole day, because you then can't drink for half an hour. You've then got to wait for that. And then if you don't have that drink, you then come into tea time. So it's making sure you do have them really set times for eating to be able to get your liquids in as well. So I don't know how everybody else found, but I found I need to make sure I've got set windows of when I can either eat or drink, because I can't drink. I'm probably about 45 minutes after food to make sure it doesn't have any other effects.
I'm still at a point where I still don't get thirsty or hungry. 3 years in, I'm still at that point. I forgot what hunger feels like now, and I just really don't. I've got to make sure I drink. It's just forcing myself to drink, really. because I'd just forget about it if I weren't careful.
Yeah, no, I think this is a big one. And when you're in your tier 3 weight management and they're saying to you, oh, regular eating pattern and make sure you drink, especially if you're feeling hungry, have a drink and that kind of thing. I think from the bariatric perspective, those habits just make it easier for after surgery if you're already in that routine. And it does help for weight loss as well, but definitely more just about living with surgery afterwards. If you already know that you've got that breakfast, dinner, tea quite defined, and you start carrying, you go everywhere with your mobile phone, your house keys and a bottle of water, then you're already starting to crack it. So I've done some follow-up calls this week, and a few patients have said to me, I can't drink water. I drink it and it feels weird. I can feel it going down. It feels heavy, it feels metallic, it feels wrong. I can't manage the water. And I hear this quite a lot, and it tends to be something that does resolve with time, but it's not unusual. So another thing that you can have to consider after bariatric surgery is messing around with your fluids too, not just for variety because you're on that liquid diet for 3 weeks, but because sometimes plain water just feels a bit odd for some. But however, if they have a hot drink, that goes down fine. Or if they put a cordial in the water, they can have it and it's not a problem. And obviously it'd be a sugar-free cordial. Again, so temperature is quite important. Ice lollies are just brilliant after surgery because they force you to take the time you need with a drink. So they tend to always go down nicely. And so I'm always a big advocate for making your own protein ice lollies as a way of getting extra protein in for your day for those early stages. So don't worry if you think, oh, what would that be? It's always normally sugar-free. It's something you'll make yourself. So it's a good idea to get those like little ice lolly molds in for after surgery, because it really is helpful if you feel like, oh, I don't know if I've took too long and it's put me off a bit and you're a bit apprehensive about your next drink, having an ice lolly and sometimes a sugar-free jelly because you're letting it melt in your mouth before it goes down, that can be useful too. And did anyone struggle with plain water here?
Yes, I still do.
Oh, do you? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ice pops and ice are my best friend.
Okay.
I have many different flavors regularly, and I can't stick to the same flavor because I don't want to get bored of it. Because early on in everything, it was all the same flavors, and it was like it just doesn't work. Like something just didn't feel right. And the more I put different varieties in every day, the better it was, and it allowed me to get more fluids into my system. Yeah. And I still struggle with getting the fluids in because I forget. Like I have timers set every half an hour to remind me to drink water and to eat food, because I don't, like Stuart said, I don't feel hungry. I don't feel thirsty. And it just, for me, I've just seen one of the questions, and for me at the moment it's like, yeah, it's a bit of a chore to eat and drink because it's like I don't feel hungry, so why should I eat and drink? When I go out with colleagues at work, they're always reminding me now, drink something, eat something. And you kind of forget about the important things when you're trying to focus on yourself.
Thanks for sharing that. So we'll move on now. So the next one I put in was hair loss. This is something that can be quite scary for everybody. We report around 1 in 10 people may be affected by this. I think it's less, in all honesty. I don't have as many people reporting this, but it could definitely be an issue. Hair loss happens as a stress response when your body is busy elsewhere. So with rapid weight loss, it's not uncommon for there to be some hair loss. There is nothing you can do to prevent hair loss. All you can do is ensure regrowth. So when you have bariatric surgery, from week 3, you start taking supplements with vitamins, minerals, zinc, selenium, copper, all the lovely things that you could buy in a hair, skin and nail remedy, like what that some people think, oh, I better buy this just to help me not lose my hair. you've already got that. That's already happening in the forcible, which is why it's one of our the one of choice, with everything at the right value for someone who's had bariatric surgery. So you don't really need to buy anything else. Our body's quite clever. When it's got what it needs, it will just wee out what it doesn't. So it's not worth spending the extra money on unless you really want to, but most of it you'll likely just wee out whatever you've bought. Okay. So in essence, the importance is protein. And it's one of the biggest things, because protein is your building blocks of life. It's your heal, it's your repair. So what happens for people that do experience some hair loss is that they start noticing their hair regrowing. So you get the sort of soft, owly, tufty bits, and then through it grows. So for some women, they may, or gentlemen, they may choose to just cut their hair shorter while it's growing through, or however they want to deal with it. But that's something just to be aware of. Okay. I don't know if anyone here wants to share anything about that. No, so far so good.
I've lost. Yeah, I've lost. I mean, I've got quite a lot of hair at the back missing because I had radiotherapy when I was younger. Out a bit more, but that's already broken and damaged. I've lost a little bit here, but it started to like poke through now, and I'm 5 months in, and it's kind of happened and regrowing again already.
Yeah, actually that's a key point, the 5 month stage, because it's usually as you go through a rapid weight loss stage, and you can't keep that up, it's unhealthy. So you tend to have your rapid weight loss between the first sort of 2 to 6 months, and then you get more weight loss, but it's much slower, and it's usually around that time that any hair loss that is happening stops happening, and you get your regrowth. So yeah, so 5 months is quite a key stage now, so hopefully you'll notice that you're not losing as much anymore, and you'll start seeing some regrowth happening as well. Okay, so other things that people have reported is noise, that they feel they're quite noisy now, and they hadn't really noticed that before. And if you, what do you mean noisy? It could be belching, it could be actually feeling like you can always hear stuff going down. You might have wind from both ends that you didn't have in the same way. Now, early on after surgery, we do fill you with a carbon dioxide gas, which eventually works its way through your system and where it should be, so that you can pass wind. So that kind of calms down a bit. And in fact, I kind of have a bit of a joke with people, because for me as a nurse, when you start passing wind from your back passage, it's like brilliant. That means your gut motility is working. Things are going to get a lot easier for you now. Things are going to, the swelling subsided. You're going to notice that having water isn't as big a challenge. Having your milk isn't as big a challenge. Things are going through nicely again. And then when you open your bowels, amazing. But that's in the first sort of week to 10 days after surgery. After that, like I say, the gas working through, hopefully things settle out a bit. But I know when I've done post-op support group sessions that people have said, I'm definitely more noisy. And for some people, they found that really hard, because they've found that they don't always feel like they have the same control as they had before. Yeah, we've definitely covered this topic before, but for some people, they find it a bit more distressing if it's not calming down. So I don't know, you don't have to share, but you can if you want to. But I think that's something that, again, people should be aware of, because I've had quite a small minority, but still quite a few patients that have said, you know, I'm much further down the line now, and I just don't feel like I you know, if I'm passing wind, don't seem to be able to control it like I did before surgery, and I can't blame the dog anymore. That kind of thing. So we can skip over if people don't want to share on that topic. That's fine. There's another one.
Jodi, sorry, mine's my stomach, so I can be sat in meetings and it does the most amazing growl, and you literally can hear it across the whole room, and I just laugh it off and whatever, but it literally like does this raw noise, very randomly, doesn't know when, doesn't know why, but you can actually, everybody can hear it. So it's one of them. Whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't go away either.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, you are. It is a replumbed system, so there may be a few of you that definitely have a bit more of an audible system, shall we say. Cold. So I remember being like maybe a year into the job, and then I started the post-op support groups when I came in, and it was getting to winter. and people were just really upset. They're like, I have never been so cold, because they were losing their lovely fat layer, and they'd lost that penguin appeal, and it was all like, no, I'm freezing. So in lots of ways, they were having to buy new clothes and then having to buy more layers and so on and so on. So just kind of joking apart, that can be a bit disconcerting if you've always been the person in the room that was too hot and suddenly you're starting to feel pretty cold, especially now with the heating crisis. So yeah, you need to think good thermal underwear for winter. So has anyone experienced that or not really?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's pretty much a yes to everyone now.
Yes.
So I think because of how much weight I've lost so quickly, before all of the weight loss, I couldn't feel anything below my knees when it came to temperature. And now it could be the hottest day imaginable and I feel cold. I could be wearing thick woolly socks and I'm freezing. And that is pretty much every day. And I don't say it as like to put people off. For me, it's a very good thing because it means I can feel things again. But it's just to keep you aware that, yeah, you are going to lose weight very quickly in some cases, and make sure that the items of clothes you buy are going to be suitable all year round.
I've got to say, when I go abroad now, I can tolerate the sun. Couldn't tolerate it before because as a big person, you end up, you just sweat like mad and it just oozes out of your skin. Well, I don't have that problem now. If I go abroad, I can sit out in the sun. Not a problem.
Brilliant. So again, in the early days, fatigue. A fatigue like nobody knows. Maybe you do know it because you might be. I had a particular bad bout of COVID, so you understand exactly what fatigue is. So it's a major surgery, and you really can feel quite tired after for a number of reasons. Your whole metabolic system is going through a change. You are burning fat in a different way. So feeling tired is quite common. Now, for some people, that's quite short-lived, because as they lose their weight, especially in the early days from your face and your neck, you tend to get a bit of an energy spurt, or you tend to feel like, oh yeah, and then as you get your protein right and you're getting these slow release sugars from the proteins that you're having throughout the day, you start to feel a bit more yourself again. And then as you get your weight loss, you find that actually you've got more energy than you ever had. So it's a bit of a pendulum with that fatigue. So it can be quite pronounced, and then quite quickly you're coming out the other side and you're better than ever. So that's just something to be aware of. So fatigue is a factor for people. And I think for people that really struggle with bariatric surgery, getting diet and food in easily, fatigue can last a lot longer. So that's just something else to be aware of. So I don't think there's much more I can say on that because it is a major surgery. Has everyone experienced that who had the surgery, or were some of you just like, I'm great, that was brilliant, thanks, I'm off? Brilliant, Corinne, that's how I want it to be. Fantastic.
I think for me, I start getting a little bit tired towards the end of my vitamin B12 when it's due. I feel a little bit, I'm ready for it. But as for real fatigue, no, I can't say I've had it. It's just, I do feel a little bit tired towards the end, that's all.
Yeah, and it's interesting that I've heard this with B12, and I'm fascinated by B12 because I don't know if I keep an eye on what's going on in the private world, and it's popping up everywhere now. Get your Botox, get a B12 injection, this kind of thing. So if you're ever feeling like that, getting a correlation where you think, well, I feel like I need my B12, ask your nurse or your doctor to do a B12 level. We call it a trough level because you're having it before your injection. And then you can see if you actually are low, because then it's worthwhile arranging it to have it every 2.5 months rather than every 3 months, because this is one of the supplements that you need to have for life. We recommend every 3 months. Sometimes your B12 levels are great and you perhaps can skip one. It depends how your GP and if they monitor your bloods. If not, we'll monitor your bloods yearly, and we advise every 3 months for a B12 injection. But yeah, Stuart, it might be interesting just to ask them to do that before they give you the next one, just so you can see if there actually is a correlation with low B12 and your energy levels, and then you'll know for sure if that is B12 related.
I will do.
Dumping syndrome, we've covered this. It should be on one of our videos that Dr. Syed did. It's quite an interesting and in-depth issue, but to put it simply, after surgery, if you eat anything that is too sweet, too greasy, or too starchy, it's going very quickly into your small bowel now, and your body doesn't quite understand what to do with this that would have been churned down in your stomach for hours previously, and it wants to get rid of it. It's offended by it and it wants it out. So you will find that you might feel a bit lightheaded, you might feel a bit sick, you might feel, you might even get palpitations. It tends to mess around with your blood sugars. They peak, then they trough, and you get all the kind of feelings that go with that. So you might get headaches, you might feel a bit sweaty, and for most people you'll end up with diarrhea. So that's the sort of classic dumping. You may get 1 or 2 or 3 of those symptoms, perhaps not all of them, but it's just something to be aware of as you're going through your journey, because it is a bit of a minefield out there on those supermarket shelves. The government's not done an amazing job really in enforcing things so that we can look at obesity in a meaningful way in our shopping. So it's still quite hard to detect what's low sugar and what's right for you. So Chris and his team have put some information in the nutrition booklet that you'll get before surgery. So you just start getting used to going around supermarkets and looking for how many grams of sugar is in this per 100 grams and things like that. So it's a little bit of a pain, but how have people found it out there shopping and getting things that suit your diet now after surgery?
I've had one really bad experience. We were going into a service station, a little boy wanted the loo, so I said, right, I'll go to the loo with her. I said, oh, I'll go and get coffees, and didn't reiterate a million times that I wanted sugar-free syrup in my latte. Didn't then stress that to the person. I got the normal syrup, and my God, was I poorly. Never again will I ever let anybody buy me a drink from a takeaway place, but that's my learning, and never again will I have it without it being sugar-free. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had that as well, Karen, as well.
So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, because while I've got my screen up, I can't actually see what people are asking. And I think in terms of the early days, it might just be worth looking to see if we've covered things or if there's any questions that we've not seen. So if any of you have seen a few questions or anything you feel like you want to answer, then please go ahead while I just have a quick scout through. Is that okay? Just going to have a little nosy.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll just go on the dumping syndrome. Somebody's put on there, will you get the dumping syndrome? It is inevitable. Sometimes not your fault. You'll go out for something to eat, not realise what you've had, and you will get it. If anybody says they've never had it, then I'm very lucky I've not had it very much. I've not had it a lot, and you can normally look after yourself to the point where you don't get it, but it definitely is inevitable. You will get it.
So I'm just having a little look through. There's a few questions at the top. I'll come into waiting times. Don't worry, I always try and give you an update. There was somebody talking about sleep studies before surgery. We arrange them when you come to our clinic. It's nice if you can have a sleep study before you come, but they're right. If you don't meet a certain criteria, they won't just order them for us. As we're a specialised centre, we can order sleep studies for you. So don't worry at all if you've not been able to have a sleep study before meeting us. I think somebody's asked about the 5% body weight targets. Don't worry too much. while you're in a tier 3 weight management service, of course that matters, unfortunately, and even though we've done studies and everything else, they say you must lose 5% as part of the criteria for funding for bariatric surgery. Once you've been referred to us, it's really important that you try and maintain as best as you can. During COVID, so for example, if during COVID you were in this process, so you're somebody that has already been through the weight management, you've come and met us, and then we've gone, yeah, we'd love to do some surgery, and then you've been delayed because of COVID, and if your weight goes from when we met you, so that's in the letter from when you met the surgeon, above 5%, then yes, please do get in touch with the dietitians and say, I'm a bit worried because I think I have gone above my 5% from when I met you in whenever it was, and then you can contact the dietitian and they can have a little look at it with you, but our surgeons have said, you know, with the delays and things that have gone on, if people have put 5% weight back on, that's, you know, completely reasonable given the circumstances. So that's for people that have already met the team, have been delayed due to COVID. If you're in weight management right now, so you might be right at the very beginning of the process, it is still part of the guidance to be able to refer you for surgery. So I'm afraid all of you will be working for that 5%. I say I'm afraid, I'm not. I want, you know, you to get into good habits, and for most people, by doing that, they lose that 5% quite easily, but for some it is a real struggle, so I appreciate that. So do talk to your weight management teams. We're going to go into loose skin in a moment. Someone was saying that they're struggling with anxiety, and I think body and mind surgery and any stress point in your life can really trigger severe anxiety. So there's a few things. If you're in tier 3 weight management already, speak to your key worker about it. I don't think our mental health services have ever been as poor as what they are at the moment in terms of waiting times and provision. So CBT, accessing things that, you know, in your coping strategies from the past, it's a really difficult one, but yeah, we have had patients that have had severe anxiety. There's very little that a hospital can do to cater for this because of how limited space is. So we can't say, oh yes, you'll definitely get a side room and you'll definitely have a different kind of route to help with your anxiety. It's almost impossible to facilitate. So I'd love to say that that's something, but really it's more to do with your coping strategies and building up. So if you have a therapist or counsellor, this is something you want to work with them for.
Headphones are a great investment for that.
Yeah, you're right. That distraction and not being able to just zone, focus in one place, and so it's not overwhelming. It's really, really helpful.
Because I know recently, for things that I've been looking at, people who have autism suffer from anxiety quite a lot, and they actually go quite hand in hand together. So because my middle child suffers from a lot of anxiety. She's only 3-4 years old. And as soon as we put a pair of headphones on that aren't pumping any noise in, she changes completely. It's like anything that could potentially be a distraction has just disappeared. So investing in a good set of headphones, having a potential music playlist that you'd like to listen to available is a great step in the right direction, especially to deal with it.
Yeah, it's worth picking up on that one. We may put that into one of our sessions as well, because I think a lot of people dealing with COVID, dealing with life and dealing with weight, a lot of mental health issues go hand in hand as well. So someone earlier was saying, is this both sleeve and bypass? Is it worse with one or the other? So in terms of all the things we've been talking about, yes, we're talking about everybody that's had a sleeve, a single anastomosis gastric bypass, or a Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. So they're the main surgeries that we offer. It can be worse in terms of dumping syndrome with the Roux-en-Y and the single anastomosis bypass. That it's because with those surgeries, we are replumbing what you've got, and you actually don't use about 150 to 200 centimeters of small bowel. So your food is going into bowel even further down as the new way that food is routed. So the effect of dumping syndrome can be more pronounced in a bypass. Okay, just Someone's saying, do you need to avoid carbs after surgery? Yeah, because essentially anything that passes your lips that's a carb, your body will use first. What we want it to target is your excess fat, hence the excellent weight loss. Sorry, I'm still just having a look through, just making sure that I'm not missing anything to do with our topic tonight. Someone's put vitamin B12 question mark. So after bariatric surgery, I could say to you, oh, your iron's a bit low, you must have more leafy greens in your diet. You can never eat enough leafy greens to up your iron after you've had a bariatric surgery. Nutritionally, to stay complete, you must follow a supplement regime for the rest of your days. You will simply not get everything you need from diet alone. So part of this, and again in the early days, in that sort of 3 weeks to 4 month stage, you're getting all your tablets in a routine. So that's taking supplements and spreading them out throughout the day. So tablet taking is a big thing, and not forgetting to take them as well. So when Ryan was saying before about setting alarms, it's often a reminder too to have your drink and take your supplement with it as well. And that's part of my support role afterwards, because supplements can be tricky. They won't, one set doesn't fit all, so we have to play around a little bit. There is a cost with bariatric surgery, potentially, because GPs do not have to prescribe multivitamins. So if yours does not want to provide you the forcible, which is actually very hard to buy anywhere else, then you would need to buy A to Z complete multivitamins and take them twice a day for the rest of your days. So because it's an A to Z complete, it's not the cheapest one available, so that would be a cost that you would need to cater in as well. Brilliant. I'm still scrolling, and then we'll get to the next page just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Any questions from the early days? Someone's just asked if a gastric balloon is something we offer. It's not something that we offer for a weight loss tool long term. Balloons aren't long term anyway, they're short term, they're there for 6 to 12 months. This would be because the only reason that we would ever put a gastric balloon in as a meaningful way for weight loss is if somebody was of a very large BMI, which meant that our laparoscopic equipment would not fit through their abdominal wall. So we need them to lose some meaningful weight prior to surgery. We would do a balloon for 6 months, then we would look at sleeve gastrectomy afterwards, and then perhaps a Roux-en-Y bypass after that. So when you come to meet your surgeon, it's very individual, and we'll look at the path that will suit you best for your optimum weight loss, with the kind of one funded attempt that everybody gets for surgery. So we try and look at everything that would give you the best results. A gastric balloon in itself, if you were looking at that, and maybe it's something that people have done in the past or had privately, you would only be looking at perhaps losing maybe 2 to 3 stone with the gastric balloon, and then whatever you've learned while your stomach had that sort of grapefruit inside to make portion sizes smaller, it's then down to you to kind of maintain that if you want further weight loss. So it can be a good tool for people, but I think if you're coming from a high BMI, you're not going to get the weight loss that you're hoping for, and long term there's a lot more willpower back needed really. So there's a few questions about balloons there, so I hope that's answered that. Okay. So yeah, someone's just said, oh, well, I take a lot of medications and I have injections already. So yeah, it's a definite consideration. You already know what it's like living with taking lots of medications. So this is something that you need to do sorry, just close these now and come back to the presentation. So so spreading your tablets out throughout the day, and then adding in, so maybe you're taking 2 or 3 at a time, including your supplements, is something you're going to need to do for the rest of your days. So that's something you have to put when you're doing your pros and cons for whether or not you're having bariatric surgery. tablet taking is a definite one that you need to consider, and can you do that, and would you be able to stick to that, because you need to be safe with this surgery long term. So we're just going to go back to my screen. So the reality long term, I put bowels. Oh yes, so some people are quite surprised because perhaps they were regular as clockwork. They went every day, half an hour or so after they got up in the morning. They have the bariatric surgery and they're going twice a week. And maybe originally they're a bit constipated, or maybe they're getting a bit of loose stools as they kind of get into the flow of what food they're having and so on. So bowels again can be a bit weird and wonderful initially. They tend to settle out once you get into your routine, and then you do notice that people tend to go less frequently than they did before. So that's the most common side effect with bowels. Bony premises, that's something that people perhaps didn't encounter before, so they might have to consider more padding if they've got a nice office chair. Yeah, it's little things that you didn't think about before. So I remember having a gentleman that I saw, and he was really upset and worried because there was a lump in his chest, and it was the bone configuration that we call a pigeon chest, and he'd always been big, always been big. So he just didn't know that he had that pigeon chest until he'd lost some of his body weight, and there he had a bit of a bony premise, and we figured out what it was, and he was much relieved because he thought it was a scary lump. So yeah, it's just being aware that these things, that change in self-image, that is really quite a challenge. It's not easy to always look in the mirror and identify the person you were in your head 2 minutes ago, and then you look in the mirror and it's quite disconcerting. And I think people are already saying they look in the mirror, they still don't see what's right in front of their eyes, and that's quite a big thing to overcome. Sometimes it can be quite fun, especially if you like shopping and swapping your clothes at charity shops, which I absolutely think you should do, otherwise you're going to spend a fortune. But yeah, it's something that you really need to think about as it goes on, and warn people around you. I think sometimes it can be quite nerve-wracking for partners, especially if both of you are overweight and they're worried, or will you like me still if I'm overweight and you're not as overweight? And sometimes if you're going in that journey together, that's really encouraging. I think we've actually seen some really sad relationships break down because of bariatric surgery. It's now proven that there is a higher divorce rate post-bariatric surgery. And I think that sometimes picks out on perhaps not being in a good partnership in the first place. And not having that support. And we've heard some horrible things in post-op support group of quite nasty, abusive partners. So there can be huge life changes ahead that come with weight loss, that people perhaps don't really think about as well. So that's something that I know one person had messaged me and wanted me to express, because even though they are in a better place, it's a really tough journey because they didn't expect to be on their own doing it. And even though they could see that there were things that were really wrong, it's been a huge life change as well. So that's just something else that's interesting, I think, post surgery, and the way we look at ourselves and others look at us around us as we lose weight as well can be both wonderful and sometimes shocking, and friendships may part. I know that I think it was a group of friends, and 2 of them had the sleeve gastrectomy, and one of them thought they were just bonkers for doing this to themselves, and quickly severed that friendship, and they'd been friends all their lives. So the 2 ladies that had the sleeve were quite shocked that suddenly, just because they'd lost weight, this friendship dissolved. So there can be real challenges there. I don't know if anyone from the panel want to share anything around relationships or self-image. I hope you've all got lovely supportive people around you.
I just think what you've said is true in both senses. Like, it can be very difficult. Even in a happy relationship, it can still be very difficult because you don't truly know what the other person's thinking. Mm. So you have to hope that what you're going through as an individual is what your partner wants as well.
Mm.
And it can be quite difficult if there's no communication there.
Yeah. And I think when you're going through a rapid weight loss, you can't control this. You have to follow the program exactly as it is. And I think that's something else that you need to be aware of, is that you can go through a weight loss that can be quite rapid, and then it can plateau off, and then you can get a bit of weight regain. So don't give up on everything you're doing when you get that bit of weight regain, because that's completely normal, especially around the 2-year mark, to sometimes get a bit of a weight regain and then maintain from there. So there's not a lot you can do to control that journey, so it's just not healthy to try to. So you don't have any real awareness of exactly how you're going to end up and where you're going to end up, which does bring me into excess skin. For a lot of people, they kind of accept that this is going to be part of the process, because it can be a real sort of deflated balloon effect. So depending on where you're coming from with your weight, depending on your genetics, your own collagen elasticity, I can't say that word, but that word, some people are very lucky, and as time goes by, the excess skin really isn't that big a deal. For some people, they're stuck with excess skin that they have to live with. And that is something you really need to consider, because, which I think is awful, the NHS does not fund the removal of that excess skin unless there's a medical reason to do so, which is usually to do with some kind of trauma being caused by that excess skin. So that trauma could be psychological, the trauma could be physical, underneath the skin, if you're getting recurrent infections, or where the skin's rubbing, if it's damaging that other part of your anatomy. So that's quite extreme, but that's the only times that the NHS will look at it. Now, I have heard of people having it where they must have had a lovely GP, an amazing panel that went, oh yeah, absolutely, you shouldn't have to live with that. But in this day and age at the moment, where resources have never been more stretched, it's really difficult to get any excess skin removal on the NHS. So people are looking at this as, thanks Margarita, thank you for that. So yeah, I'll pause there and I'll come into a patient story that someone wanted to share in a moment. But how are you guys feeling about excess skin? Is it a worry or
worse?
It's not a summer, not short sleeve. It's not bothered me at all.
Good. And I think a lot of people feel that way because they kind of accept that that's going to
so
be part of the process.
I'm still calling myself up, so the sleeves still need, I'm fine. It's only hands, to be honest, it's only hands. No legs, no belly, nothing, just the hands.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Hannah?
So I thought I'd be a lot worse than I am, because I've always been quite a big girl, but I've always been quite full and firm, where now everything's kind of gone south. But I look at myself in clothes and I think, wow, you look brilliant. And then I think of my health and think, wow, you feel brilliant. So for the few minutes a day where you are stood in front of the mirror and feeling quite down, the plus side to it really counted. I thought I'd be worried about it a lot more than I am, but I'm not.
Good.
I think it's different relationships are different, and it's like, for me, for instance, I've been with my wife for 20 odd years, 30 odd years now. Nearly got that one. But I've been with Andrea for 30 odd years now, so I've actually found my partner, and we're happy. She's happy. She doesn't look me any different. I mean, you can probably see my arms. I've got a lot of excess skin, but it doesn't bother me.
Sorry, could people see that then? Because I have my screen up, so could people see?
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh look, everyone's joining in. It's the arms, isn't it? And you know what? That happens to everyone once you're over 45. It all starts to wobble.
Yeah, is that what it is? It just gives you a bit of I don't know.
Look at Ryan and his gun.
As you can see, my
it's
neck
still
is
there,
quite
though.
red at the moment because I started injections to firm my skin up. So the skin on the neck was nearly lying down like this. So I got my injection every 6 weeks now. So it's firming up.
Yeah.
Even my chin is different. This was like Sharpie.
Yeah, so Margarita, I mean, I think obviously for you that kind of self-image is important, and you want to try and feel as good, look and feel a certain way, and that's really, you know, I mean, that's very personal and very individual. So thank you so much for sharing that.
I know front desk office, for me it's important. I'm a first front in the office.
Yeah,
I have to.
Yeah, so I think this is why I always sort of say you have to think that bariatric surgery does so much. And in this world, unfortunately, things aren't cheap. So I know that we had our young gentleman, Liam. I don't know if everyone saw him last time we did patient experience, and he came from about 280 kilograms. That's not a small weight, and he was a very young man. He was in a lot of trouble with his breathing, and his excess skin is quite extreme, and he knew it would be because of where he was coming from. And for him, unlike perhaps our children who might be thinking about, well, young adult children who will be thinking about saving up maybe for a deposit for a house, he's saving up so that he can be considered for a bigger loan to have his excess skin removal, so that he can feel like he's the young man out there. His life, his social life, nothing's stopped him. He's having a great time, but he's aware that this is something he doesn't want to carry with him until he's 80, 90, 100. So he wants to have that excess skin removed, and that's something that, you know, he's literally going to have to pay for himself. So these are things to consider. And I did have another lady. She had bariatric surgery a long time ago when the NHS was starting to offer it. I think it was around 2003. And at the time, you know, you'd have your bariatric surgery, and then you'd see the nurse and you see the dietitian, and then you would come back for yearly weight management. And one of the consultants, Dr. Summers, who some of you may have met here, she does the follow-up with our medics, and she asked me to get in touch with her. So I spoke to her, and she was keen for me to share a picture. Unfortunately, she's not been able to share a picture for me, but she's been absolutely devastated by her excess skin. And as much as she absolutely loved early on, the first 3 years, the weight loss, the health benefits, she felt great. She was also going through something which was really hard for her. She went through an unexpected loss. So her husband, the love of her life, went out to the paper, had a massive heart attack, never came home, and she lost him at a very young age. She had her bariatric surgery some 3 years after that, and I think the excess skin and really not being over the loss of her husband meant that she just completely withdrew. She doesn't want to leave the house. She barely ever does. She does have family, but she says she has no life, and she wished she'd never done it. And so there are definitely people out there for varying different reasons that for whatever reason do regret having bariatric surgery. I'm sure you'll know of people yourselves, and there'll be stories on Facebook and other forums. But it was really nice to talk to that lady, and she has had psychological help, and she has had a few other things, but for her it just makes no difference. She can't rewind time. She can't get her husband back. She can't get her healthy body image back, so she just feels quite lost. So I really felt for her. And she did want me to share that, and her message was she does not believe that the NHS should offer these services without excess skin removal, full stop. And I completely agree with her, and that's why I think it's really important when it comes to thinking about excess skin that you are aware that we haven't won that challenge. We cannot offer that as part of this service, so it's something you need to consider and do your research with first as well. Okay. Brilliant. I'll just quickly flip back to my presentation so I can see if there's anything else that I was going to talk about on the oh yes, confronting challenges. So I think this covers all kinds of things, but it is quite interesting, and ending on more of a higher note, because I think we've covered a lot of things that may feel like, oh, I hadn't thought about that before, and I didn't really know about that before. So I've heard there's a lot of food for thought, I'm sure. But confronting challenges, I think that I was speaking to a lady before, and she had her bariatric surgery, maybe it was only about 3 months ago, and she's feeling really good, much like Hannah has been saying, and Corinne's been saying, and Margarita's saying, who've all had their surgery recently, and Ryan. You just kind of get that bigger suddenly, and you want to do stuff. So the challenge for her was saying yes. So before, she'd always be like, well, no, I'm sorry, we can't book a holiday. I'm not going through the humiliation of a plane, so no. And then it would be like, well, no, I'm not going to a concert because I might just be too out of breath. I'll just feel like I'm in the way. And she's like, oh, I was at Killers the other week. It was brilliant. And my husband's just booked a holiday. And I say yes to everything. I never say no. I don't even think about it. I just say yes. And I just thought, that's brilliant. So she is confronting her challenges that she's lived with because of obesity. And her attitude is just say yes to everything. I've been locked away because of blooming COVID. I felt completely debilitated by my weight and whether that was right or wrong. And I know a lot of people, they're very active with weight, but for her, she just felt like she didn't want to do things. And now it was lovely speaking to her because she was just like, I was saying, oh, I'm doing one tonight about the weird and wonderful. And she was, I think she was struggling with water. So that was one of her weird and wonderful. But for me, that's wonderful. She's really embracing things and I'm quite envious. I want to go and see the Killers. But yeah, so she's doing great. And I hope that from seeing some of the pictures this evening and hearing some of the kind of more common things that can happen afterwards, like getting into routine with tablets, understanding the restriction that you're living with now, understanding the changes and challenges that you need to face. And this is something that's the most common. There are other things that we can do at another time where we look at where, you know, people having to have revision surgeries and things like that, when surgery, the first surgery itself may have complications of strictures and so on. So we'll do another session on complications at some point. Is there anything from the panel that you want to add in on maybe long-term things that perhaps have not picked up on?
I'm not sure about adding, but I'm just very grateful what surgery done. I'm free from my diabetes. That's the mind point thing was I'm clear. So I'm not taking any more metformins, no any injections, nothing at all. I'm absolutely happy with that. You know,
it's a big one. Being free of the diabetes can be really nasty as you go into later years. So it's a really lovely thing to be in a different health position.
Since my youngest born, 7 years. You know, all the Vega and all this was most depressive things. But now I'm active. I'm back to work for full-time work. I'm not complaining about any pain anymore. No back pain, no legs pain, no noses, nothing at all. Absolutely back to normal life. I'm absolutely grateful to Salford Royal. They just bring me back to life. I can breathe now. You know, with that massive weight loss, I'm absolutely grateful.
I'm just so glad you're doing so well, and thank you all. Is there anyone else that wants to make any comments?
I've got to agree with what she's just said. Exactly the same. It's just wow. You know, all them pills have got. I know you're taking other pills, and we're taking good pills now, not bad pills. No sleep apnea. That's another thing that's gone. No pre-diabetic. I'm well. I'm living life, loving it.
Oh, I forgot to say, Steve has just put the survey in. If anyone can do the survey, that's just really useful because we're always trying to fight to keep the good things we do. So the surveys are really useful to us. So if you can do them, that's great. Okay, so I know everybody wants to know waiting times, what's going on. So as I said, I've been very busy phoning people that have been having surgery. And that's because elective surgery is happening, which is fantastic. It's been happening for a few months. Since last October, we've had a trickle of activity, and now the floodgates have opened, and we are doing regular elective lists at Salford Royal, and at the Oaklands, we also have some activity there as well. We have had to prioritise with always any what we call priority patients. So these are patients that need weight loss due to usually an endometrial cancer, where they need a hysterectomy for a curative procedure, or somebody who wants to get onto the kidney transplant list, need weight loss to meet the BMI 35 criteria for a new kidney. So those patients are always at the top of our list. We've always done those going through. We then have our long waiters from 2019 and 2020 that we're now doing at Salford Royal. So those people are getting their surgery, and then hopefully we'll start working through our waiting list from beyond. So in terms of waiting times, it's still difficult to be precise, but it's great. We have 6 surgeons all working hard doing bariatric surgery. We have regular, at the minimum of 2 lists per week at the moment, which is fantastic. We've got surgeons that will do stuff on the weekends, which is great. It can affect pathways afterwards because there's only one of me. They'll probably only let there be one of me. As much as I love to do quite a lot of follow-up, sometimes I'm not going to be able to do that in the same way because of the volume of people we're getting through, which I think is important. So just to be aware, don't be offended if at 6 weeks you didn't get that appointment. You have my number, you have Chris's number, so we need to just make sure that as people go through, they feel very happy to give us a ring if they've got concerns as they're going along. That's what we're here to support. So going kind of back into reality, so even though I'm very excitable because I'm super busy again with people who are actually having bariatric surgery rather than the things I've been busy with previously, it's still a long journey. There is still a journey to be had. So if you're joining us tonight, maybe you've just started your weight management journey. Most people have to do a minimum of 12 months in a weight management service. So the top tip for me is please get the most out of it that you can in terms of the nutritional advice you get. It can feel incredibly condescending when people are saying, just eat this and do that and exercise more. And I know you've all been there and got the t-shirt, but there's a lot more in depth in that tier 3 weight management. So really try and get the most out of that and access those psychology and therapy groups, because even if you think you don't need it, no one gets that on the NHS easily. You have that in your tier 3 weight management. So access those services. It'll only do you good, no harm. And then once you've been through that 12-month journey, you can you'll then be referred on to us. Now, this is the bit that at the moment we're still not happy with, and we'll hopefully get there. So we're dealing with our backlog of surgeries, but we have a massive backlog of people waiting to see us, because throughout this, most weight management services, the support, all of those things we've carried on, and we've been getting more and more referrals than ever before because of unfortunately the nation becoming more and more obese, and people realizing that you need to go to these weight management services and so on. So at the moment, our waiting time from referral to meeting our team is 9 to 12 months, and then from there, hopefully the surgery won't be going on. It could be years until you have your surgery. Hopefully we're going to get all our long waiters done and start our 2021 people as well this year. So hopefully from when you meet us, we'll start getting into a position for 2023 where you won't be having as long a waits for that. So it's still a long journey. All in all, I would imagine all of you to be in this for a good 2.5 years from when you start to when you're having surgery. So that's how I would view it at the moment. And then depending where you are, if you've been referred, so think about when the referral date to us, and you're thinking 9 to 12 months from that referral date. So it's important that you keep coming to these sessions so I can update you on that as we go along as well. So always use this group as your way of having a bit of a lifeline to what's going on in the bariatric world and learning all the time and taking advantage of these sessions as well. Okay then, everyone. Thanks so much, and thank you to the panel, and thank you for everyone attending. So we'll be here again next month. Take care.